Utah politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. This morning we do begin with Representative John Curtis. Representative, great to have you back on the show. It's been a while.
It has been too long.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate your time. Let's start off with your privacy bill. You and I ran into each other at the Pioneer Day Parade not long ago, and you told me about this bill, and it's pretty fascinating because it really is on the minds of a lot of people. You walk into a store, all of a sudden you walk out, you see ads for that store pop up in your social media feed. It's almost like they're watching us and listening to us. Tell us what your bill's all about.
Well, the worry is it's going to get worse. The 5G network that's being rolled out across the country puts in appliances cameras and microphones so that those can connect with the internet, and there's a lot of good that comes out of that, but you can imagine the problems that could come out of that. Around your home, they have microphones and cameras. So we had a bill passed through committee on a unanimous bipartisan basis the other day. It was a really good bill that simply makes sure that consumer is aware if one of those devices is in something they're buying. And it's a great bill, a lot of support back in Washington for it.
So it makes them aware, and then they could go in and remove it if they want to, or disable it, or
yeah,
how does
so
that
to
work?
me, that's actually the second, that's the next bill we need to do, is to make sure that there is an option. Right now it simply says, beware, buyer beware, don't buy this if that's a problem for you. But I really think we ought to make sure manufacturers are giving people an option if they don't want that. Now, let me be clear, there are a lot of benefits that come from these smart devices, right? For instance, if you want to do your laundry in the middle of the night, it can set it to do that and it will cost you less electricity, your bill will be lower. So those are the types of things that why we're putting devices in these things. But there's a lot of mischief that can happen as well.
Where's the line? We don't really want them listening to us and necessarily feeding us based off what they listen to, and it really seems like that's what's happening these days.
Well, and it's like I say, it's going to get a lot worse. This 5G concept is that every device in your home, every toaster, every refrigerator, every microwave is going to have these types of devices in it.
And that bill, you feel good about it getting it to the president's desk?
It was unanimous in committee, Republicans and Democrats. I do. It was an important bill, and we actually did 6 privacy bills that day. Really important work for Congress to deal with these privacy issues.
Suicide prevention, a big issue here in the state of Utah. Unfortunately, we're near the top of the nation when it comes to death by suicide. You're also teaming up on a bipartisan bill for that. Tell us what that would do.
Yeah, so we're all looking for solutions for firearms, particularly related to deaths. You know, 6 out of 10 deaths from a firearm are actually suicide. And we don't talk about that enough. And so I teamed with, actually it's a very liberal member of Congress. It's kind of fun. Pramila Jayapal and I teamed up. This is a bill we already have this law in the state of Utah, which gave me a lot of confidence to say, hey, this is something my state would like. But the short version is that it allows individuals to self-opt out of being able to buy a firearm. It's totally voluntary. It's not imposed on anybody. But if somebody knows that they have the potential to get in a bad place, they can preempt that by saying, don't let me buy a firearm.
And has data shown that people actually do that?
It does. I had a woman come into my office in Washington, D.C., and she almost broke down. She said, this would have saved my mother's life. And now, we're not in large numbers, right? I mean, it's not like thousands and thousands, but it's people, and every single one of these is a life. And the more we perfect this concept, I think the more lives we can save.
Once someone does that, how do they work their way back to
totally voluntary. They put themselves on and they take themselves off.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. So they're in control, but there are people who do realize they can get in a bad place, and this is for them.
And what's the status of that bill?
So it's also working its way through because of its bipartisan nature. Suicide Prevention Week is coming up in September. It's our intent to bring it to a vote in September. And we think we have a high likelihood of getting that through the House.
Okay, a bill recently that went through the House that got a lot of attention was the Respect for Marriage Act.
Yeah.
You and the other 3 members of Utah's delegation all voting in favor of that, which caught some by surprise, not necessarily your yes vote, but some of the others. Talk about why you voted for that bill.
Yeah, I might just mention, and it's hard to, you don't want to speak for your colleagues, but this was an interesting one because we all reached that conclusion without talking to each other. A lot of times we'll talk.
I was going to ask you to speak for your colleagues, so I'm glad you're doing it voluntarily.
Yeah. A lot of times, you know, we'll talk and brainstorm a bill, but we all actually all came with that yes in mind. For me, there's 2 things, and I want to point out, a lot of people didn't understand. The bill actually codifies states' rights, and so what the bill really says is that the law of the state is the law. And that's an important issue for federalism, and that was an important issue for this. But another thing that's really important for me is I don't want the federal government telling people who they can marry and who they can't marry. That's a bad place to be in my mind. And if you look throughout history, there was a time when the federal government would have banned interracial marriages. As a matter of fact, that was actually in this bill. And you know, what if somebody feels like you shouldn't ban, you should ban marriages with different religions and things like that? And it's just not the proper role of government for me, for federal government especially, to be saying this is who you can marry and this is who you can't.
Over time, polling has shown that Utahns have changed their attitudes on same-sex marriage, to be specific. What role do you think that played in all 4 members voting yes?
You know, I'm sure it influenced it, and like I say, we all got there in slightly different ways. And I think I've probably changed, if I'm honest, over my lifetime and my feelings about this. But bottom line is, no, I don't want the federal government telling me who I can marry.
Okay. Another big bill that was quite controversial on the Hill was the contraception vote.
Yeah.
Reverse of the marriage vote, all 4 of our delegation voted against that. Yeah. You have told me you're not against access to contraception, but you didn't like the way this bill did it. Talk to me specifically about why.
Yeah, there are 2 flaws in the bill. And let me just reemphasize, I believe every woman and even man should have access to contraceptives. That's not a question in my mind at all. But this bill went further than that, and it got into these medications that can terminate a pregnancy months after conception. So it really became an abortion bill, and that was very problematic for me. It also, one of the things it did is it mandated that regardless of your religious beliefs, if you're a doctor, you must prescribe contraceptives if asked. So particularly in the Catholic religion, this is a big deal. All contraceptive in the Catholic religion is a big deal, and a Catholic doctor could be mandated to have to prescribe this, and that was a problem for me too. And if they had brought, I guarantee you, if they had brought a clean contraceptive bill up, meaning it's just simply dealing with contraceptives, I can't imagine that wouldn't have been unanimous in the House on all sides. You always get 1 or 2, right, that's not there. But this bill, if you looked a little deeper, and I will tell you, it was not easy. There was great consultation in my office with the women in my office and people back in the district to get to the point where we knew how we were going to vote on that.
I'd like to get your thoughts on how both of those bills are going to do in the Senate. Do you see both of them coming through?
They're dead, right? These were very, very symbolic bills. Speaker Pelosi knew that. Everybody knew that. It goes back to Clarence Thomas's statement about what the Supreme Court may or may not do. And so I'll be shocked if they get a vote in the Senate. They've come and gone.
Even on the marriage bill?
Even on the marriage bill, yeah. I just don't see a vote there.
Okay, we'll see what happens. We have about 30 seconds left, not a lot of time, but you're big on the climate caucus. Republicans unveiling their principles. What are the top things you are pushing for there?
Look, I think it's important, if we only have a few seconds, for people to know we can have energy independence, we can have affordable, reliable prices, we can have a strong economy, and we can reduce emissions. That's something conservatives can get behind, and that's what we're pushing.
All right. There's actually going to be a forum next month with you and some other candidates for election, and I'll be moderating that, so I will see you then,
we go into more detail.
If not before then.
Good.
All right.
Excellent.
Thanks so much. Great to have you. Appreciate it. Still to come on Inside Utah Politics.